Hello everyone, I'm BeakerTeck, also known as Keegan, and welcome back to Cities Skylines, done somewhat differently because, as you can probably tell from the video, things are going a little bit fast, and I am not talking as fast as the video is in the background. So for this one, we are doing a time-lapse. The entire video is a time-lapse of, as I've been talking about for the last little while, so if you've been watching this series, you'll know what this is. This is the capital. This is the main central city, big build of the area, of the Golden Territories, and I'm finally getting around to doing it. Now, I knew it was going to be a massive project with a lot of work involved, so I did decide to do it as a time-lapse, because otherwise it would be about 5 episodes worth. And a little bit of a warning, a little bit of a precursor, it is not finished at the end of this video. So what you saw me doing just there was the terrain work. We just sort of leveled out the area that I want to work with, and now I am trying to get done the road system. I had an idea in my head of what I wanted to do. I wanted this sort of arching road through the city, and then right in the center to have almost a sort of a giant floating roundabout, similar to what I did in the other build in is it Hilltop? I think it's Hilltop over there, which I've done over there, but this time sort of grander scale. And I really liked how it worked in the end. So you'll see it in a couple minutes or so. I do build that, and that was sort of in my head the entire time, was how the city sort of has these main highway connections going through, and that was sort of the idea behind this build. So the road goes up quite high, and everything sort of is underneath it, and it turns out quite cool. But because there was so much time spent on trying to get these roads perfect and trying to get them how I envisioned it in my head, I didn't have time to do as much detail work as I'd like. You'll see at the end I do sort of one custom little park area, but it's not super detailed. It's essentially a tree. It's a tree. It's a singular tree, and that is the entire park. No, it is some trees with some pathways and stuff and things like that. But it's nothing grandiose, nothing super detailed. And that is something that I am thinking I'd like to go back and do. I'd like to go back and sort of finish off and detail the city. And that was always the plan. I was going to build... This was going to be a huge project, right? It always was. And so the idea was to sort of build the main sort of road section first, grow it out, and almost grow it organically. Start in the center, work my way out, start with nice big buildings, work it out into nice small buildings, all that kind of stuff. Work it out all organically. And then after that, go back and detail it. And I was planning on doing that in this one episode. It was going to be one episode where I quickly built everything, like city-wise, and then finished it off with detail work. Unfortunately, I misjudged how long it was going to take to build all of the city section stuff. This took several hours just to get what you'll see at the end of the video done. I cut out a lot of it. It's currently running at 4 times speed, and it's a 15-minute long video, and so that alone is an hour of footage, and I cut out at least over half, right, of this. So there was about, I think it was a 3-hour original video of recording. So there was a lot of time in it, and I didn't expect that from the outset. So that's sort of half the reason that there's not any detail work in this particular video. And the other reason is because, well, I kind of crashed my game. The Cities Skylines no longer launches for me. It refuses to play ball. After finishing this, this 3 hours of recording, I went back, I closed the game, and I thought, okay, let's take a break. Let's get outside, seize the sunshine, get some vitamin D in me. And I came back and I tried to launch the game, and it just wouldn't. There's just too many mods and too many assets installed, and it refused to load. My computer, which is, you know, a decent computer, it's not a weak one by any stretch of the imagination, and it just wouldn't load it. I think in the end I had several thousand mods and assets installed when I went back and had a look, and it was too much for it to handle. So unfortunately, I'm not going to be able to go back and redo any of this or go back and finish off the detail work. What you see at the end of this is what you get. This is the end of the Golden Territories, and it's a little bit sad. It's a little bit heart-wrenching, but that is how it's gonna be. So yeah, just wanted to let you know up front that this is the last episode of Golden Territories, but I do have some plans for the next series, which I have mentioned in previous episodes, and I will mention a bit later on in this episode. But a little bit about what I'm actually doing, a little bit of commentary on the actual work here that is going on in front of you. The idea was to have these sort of two sides of this ravine with maybe some stuff going down in the middle. I didn't get around to doing the other side or down in the ravine in that time, but that was sort of the idea. And so you'd start with this central highway interchange, the central interchange, and from there you'd sort of go down in scale. So the very center would be massive tall buildings, and you'll see I put in some custom buildings in just a few minutes. But I had this picture of sort of the center being nice and tall, grandiose, CBD kind of style, CBD being Central Business District, if you were unaware, and then sort of going out into sort of more suburbsy, lower density areas. So we start with offices in the middle, because they can grow to be quite tall, as well as some high density residential in that center area. We designate office space off to the side, and then down here, the bit I'm building now, is high density residential. And I'm consciously making an effort while building to keep the game running in the background so that the tailback of traffic isn't too intense. If I pause for too long and build too much stuff, the traffic gets a little crazy. So I was trying to keep it playing sort of in the background as I built, just so that, you know, when I do massive sections of residential like that I just did, it didn't completely kill the traffic system, which it did at one point. You'll see that sort of near the end of the video. But this section here is sort of, now we're coming out into the lower density stuff, and this is sort of trying to get down into this ravine, which eventually just ends up getting used for the garbage, I believe, goes down in that ravine, because I did realize I'd forgotten to put any of that in, but we'll get to that a bit later. And again, on this side, we've got some, I believe, offices go in that space, and here we go. Here is the placing of these sort of tall custom buildings. I tried to keep them not too massive. They were sort of, I had in my head, I knew how big, you know, office buildings and residential buildings grow, and so I didn't want anything much bigger than that. And I also realized I had very limited space because I'd built quite close to that roundabout section there. But I think in the end, everything turned out to be quite nice. In terms of size and scale wise, everything worked out pretty well. Putting in a few sort of further out as well, just to build a nice, you know, height distribution area. And here we go, we're putting in some of the districts here, and we put in basically everything that's going to make them do really well. So we've got park stuff, we've got tax relief for high density stuff, we've got big business benefactor, that's a hard one to say, and then I also go ahead and force level that whole section, and that basically forces all of those buildings to be nice and tall, and they're also really happy because everything is wonderful in these zones. You know, they don't have to pay many taxes and all that kind of stuff. And as you can see, they grow up to be the perfect kind of size. They fit in just right. And I lied, this is not low density here. It's still high density, but what I do is I use the district tool to lock out the high rises. So it's still high density, but it's banned high rises, which ended up working really well because it kept it nice and close together and clumped up, which was exactly what I wanted, and it fit the theme. And some of them were kind of tall, but they weren't as tall as the main CBD, which you see there, the capital CBD. And here we go, we do the same thing on this side. We do high density buildings And we make sure that they're nice and large. We also put some offices in there, but we lock it down to being no high rises. And what you saw me do there was just put in some commercial because I was forgetting it. And I thought, we had this massive block of offices up the top. We don't need offices right in the center as well. So I replaced that out for some commercial, which ends up looking really nice. And these sort of more suburby areas, I know they're high density, but in my head they were the suburbs. I went ahead and put some parks and some fuel stations and the like, just to they act as parks, which means everything is really good, but they look normal being a gas station. They fit in with this high density suburb. And then what I'm looking at here is I'm realizing there's no way out of the city. You might have noticed it while I was building. I didn't notice it till now. I'm sort of drawing with my mouse trying to work out where they can go. There was no way out. Everything circled into the city, but there was no circle out of the city. So as you can see here, I add those. It does create some nasty intersections and some nasty traffic issues, but we'll get to that later. And here is that park that I was mentioning. So this was meant to be the start of the other side, but this was about hour 2 of this build. And so basically what I thought was this other side, we've got the main CBD, high density, all that kind of stuff on one side of the ravine. I was thinking you drive over the bridges and you get into the more actual suburby stuff. So I thought a nice little thing in there would be a bit of a park right in the center where everyone can go, with some paths to walk around and all that kind of stuff. And I'm just here looking for my empty field, that empty custom park field that I made, and I just go ahead and dot it all the way around. And I can even put it in the center because I use walkable dirt roads, which was great. Here I realized, of course, that I had forgotten to turn on prop and tree anarchy when I placed them, so it went and removed all of my trees that I had just painstakingly put down with a giant brush. So I go back and I do it by hand individually, which is a little bit of a pain in the butt. It's a bit of a nightmare, but it worked well in the end, and everything worked out fine. But I do have to apologize. I do make you watch me do these trees for quite some time. But it turned out nice in the end. These guys were complaining, and it was because I'd forgotten all the services. There was no fire, no police, no education, no rubbish, no nothing. So what I'm doing here is I am just trying to get in a hospital section. And again, in my head I was thinking I'm going to come back, I'm going to detail this. So the idea was to build out a nice little area around that, have a beautiful hospital health district. But that didn't happen. So we are coming to the end of the video here, and as you can see, the traffic got crazy. I sat here for quite some time and I watched it, and I tried to work out what can I do to fix it, because this is nuts. And just watch some of these intersections. If you look at sort of the bottom right of that roundabout, you can see the traffic trying to go out is having to cross paths with the traffic trying to come in, and it just was not working at all. It was an absolute nightmare. So what I decided to do was go ahead and make all of the external area two-way, because originally it was a one-way loop. So I decided to turn that into two-way, just to sort of help the traffic flow, because I noticed all the traffic was trying to go to one side of the city. And so by having it two-way, it meant that they could go either side of the roundabout. And also I increased the size of the off-ramps to 2-lane highway just to allow some more traffic flow. And honestly, the best thing was turning that off being a one-way system, because now people that want to go to the bottom, bottom right don't have to go all the way to the left, all the way around and that kind of stuff. You can just go where you want to go. It did take a while to come back, but as you can see, I think this is the final shot. Yeah, I put this in just so you can see it did clear up in the end. It did get right, and so I'm very, very happy with that. But as you can see, there's not much detail in this because, as I said, I was thinking of coming back to it, but that's not going to happen. So guys, in the next series, we're going to be doing small town, rural farms. I'm going to be trying to recreate where I live in New Zealand with our beautiful rural scenery. So guys, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, smash that like button. Don't forget to hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next series.